right, let's go ahead and get this meeting started. Is there anything on the regular agenda that we need to talk about right now? If not, we're going to move to the meeting issues and updates, and I just go around. And the next one that I see is Pam. Pam, do you have any updates?
I do. Both the Green Space Commission and the Plan Commission met last night. So Green Space Advisory Commission talked about future projects, and one of which is for you to mark your calendars for Tuesday, April 27th. You'll be receiving information and invitation to an Arbor Day celebration. That's going to be at Blackburn Park at about 5 o'clock. And they will be planting 200 trees in Blackburn Park for that celebration. And the other thing is they're going to be looking at scheduling a winter tree walk at the end of February or early March. It'll be an outdoor walk with a speaker. And both of these programs are part of their continuing series of programs that help keep up their certifications for Tree City and Bee City USA. And then at 7 o'clock last night, the Plan Commission met and continued 2 public hearings. Both of them are related to residential zoning code text amendments, which again kind of goes back to some of our goals on diversifying housing. So the one good thing that was interesting and kind of simplified is that the single family dwellings are going to be changed to 2-family dwellings in the A4 district. And that is a very basic and simple change. They're going to be, all the requirements are going to remain the same as for single family dwellings. And then the other text amendment has to do with dimensional regulations, and Mara and Danny have talked about adding a section to that which will limit the amount of impervious materials. And this kind of grew out of some of our conversations about the driveway widths. And so they will be talking about that, and they're going to present ideas on show examples for that and how those percentages will affect homes and landscape areas. So if you all are available, it would be a good primer to attend the next meeting on February 1st at 7 o'clock. Otherwise, they'll probably be continuing a little bit longer, and possibly March, the first meeting in March, is you'll be able to sit in and listen. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Pam. That's a lot of work. Appreciate it.
Can I ask one question, Jerry, before we move on? So I know the Sustainability Commission is interested in that pervious versus impervious stuff. I don't know really if this is for you, Pam, or if it's for Mara. It might be nice if we could share with them what's going on so they can at least participate in the public comment part of the hearing. So if there's an easy way to do that, please let me know and we can get that done.
I can just go ahead and forward the packet just like I did to the ARB. I'm keeping the ARB in the loop. So I sent them the Plan Commission packet prior to the meeting. So I'll just, I can easily just forward that to Sustainability and CCU.
That would be great. And I do, just so you all know, I think their tentative plan is to have somebody from Sustainability just listen in to see what is relevant moving forward on Plan Commission as well.
And do know I had a fabulous feedback both from 2 of our members of Plan Commission. You guys recently appointed an engineer from MSD, and he was able to give us some additional information and some examples. And then our planner who works, there's a planner that you appointed pretty recently. He was able to give us this whole data set for impervious for the entire county that we can use through GIS. So between the 2 of them, just continues to further the give me engineers and architects and planners on my Plan Commission, but they were really helpful. So it's going to be quite a fascinating bit of research.
Great. Good job. Thank you. Emerson, I think you're next.
Nothing to report directly, Mayor, but I do continue want to give job well done to the ARB. They're running very efficient, and it appears that, and I will say from the first time I looked at them in the meeting up until now, it appears that they're doing more compassionate review and making sure the homeowner is satisfied with their results and giving some good recommendations. So that's, and like I said, they're doing a lot of pre-approvals, you know, so therefore it moves fairly efficiently throughout the process. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Laura?
Yes, sustainability did meet just before the holiday break. They are still working on agenda setting for this upcoming year. A couple things that they're talking through, things like finding some of the walkable, bikeable that we can actually implement, maybe rejoining the Green City Challenge and looking at how we can work with one STL on some environmental initiatives in town. But it's still planning. So they're identifying, they're going to create a few subcommittees. One thing for all of us, if you want to put on your calendar, the Great Rivers Greenway has a survey that closes January 15th. That's to help them with their planning. So if you have a moment, please take the time. Both those of us on council and anybody who's listening in, you can just get that straight from their main homepage. And then we did have the Alliance for Racial Dignity meeting where students from WashU presented information about the Community Land Trust as it pertains to Webster Groves. I have just recently talked to Molly Metzger about how that information can be packaged and sent to us. So I look forward, Karen and I'll have to figure out how to best provide it to you once it's all ready to go.
Thank you. It was a good meeting. Sarah?
No updates.
Karen? You're muted.
No meeting updates, really. I think you guys probably saw the email on the 19th from Tom at the library. One of the employees tested positive for COVID. They think that, well, the employee was asymptomatic, but their child was sick. And they think that she may have contracted it through their child. They don't know. That the protocol was for them to absolutely shut down the library for that week. So they thought that it would remain closed until after the holiday. I didn't notice any updates since that one, but other than that, I haven't.
Thank you, Karen. David?
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay. Katie? Katie?
No, Mayor. Thank you.
Joanne?
I just want to thank all of you because this will be my last meeting as the interim city manager. And I just want to thank all of you for trusting me and working with me for these last 5.5 months. I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much.
Good job, Joanne. Good
And I'm
job.
definitely looking forward to our new city manager starting on Monday. And I'll do my very best to support her in any way I can. But it's been great. You guys have just really been wonderful. And thank you so much.
Thank you. You've done a great job.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. Thank you. Neil, do you have anything?
No, ma'am, nothing directly.
I have a couple of things. The Arts Commission met this morning, and if you've seen Earth Rabbit, you know, the Arts Commission voted this morning to turn it around 180 degrees so that the front faces the front, and that will be taken care of. They're talking about some new signage. The signage on a lot of the public sculptures is really beaten up, and so that's in the works. They're also beginning to explore some art walks and some art audio and something that will educate folks about various pieces and what is in town. So that's the beginning of a discussion there. Last month, the Police Community Engagement Board took their survey and their presentation to the local Rotary Club. You know, it's been hard for them to get out because of COVID, but they Zoomed with the Rotary Club and it was an extremely good discussion. that actually went 15 minutes over the ending time for the Rotary meeting. So people were really fully engaged with them. And I think the Police Community Engagement Board folks got a lot of good information. And Dale participated in that too and answered a lot of questions. The last thing I want to say is that everybody's gearing up for the state legislative session that is beginning. And the priority of all the organizations in the state and regionally seems to be Wayfair. And there has been a bill that was filed that both the Muni League and the MML supported last year. And what they're hoping is that it can stay clean. And if it can stay clean and get voted on, that will be great. But you all know that what happens in Jeff City is that people start attaching one thing after another to bills, and then they are not clean, and then somebody opposes them for some other reason. So they're really, both the Muni League and the MML and the key lobbyists that we have, those two organizations have, they're very active and they're good. They're really trying to keep that as a separate clean bill. So I'll keep you updated as I get updates moving forward. Okay, any questions? All right, we're going to go on to our topics. And our first topic tonight is the comprehensive annual financial report. I think for all of us, this is one of the most absolutely important documents that we have as a city council. You know, our primary responsibility is to ensure that we are fiscally stable and that we are fiscally healthy. And we have staff that works to make sure that that happens. But that oversight over the fiscal state of our city really falls to all of us. And so I think that document that you have, the CAFR, is probably one of the most important documents that we as a city council need to understand and get through. And so I'm going to turn this over to Joanne for a presentation, and then we're looking forward to all kinds of questions about that fairly complicated report. So Joanne, it's yours now.
First, I am going to introduce two individuals who are going to be answering questions and giving the presentation. The first one giving the actual presentation is Tammy Alsop from Hoke Shield Bloom and Company. She's the partner there. And she is just a very smart and wonderful resource there. She helps us tremendously through the whole audit. And when she goes through, and I know Marlene will agree with me on this, she and her team they're not aggressive or anything like that, but they're very professional and they ask a lot of very good questions and they get the information that they need. And if there are errors, they work with us to correct those. And it just means a lot that they're such a professional and well set up group. Marlene Sherman is our finance manager, and she had so much of the responsibility of the financial statements and providing so much information to the auditors in order for them to be comfortable with the information that was provided. And without her, it would not have been a very good time for me at all. So thank you so much to Marlene. So Tammy, I will hand it over to you if you'd like to get started. When you speak, if you would please tell us what page number you're on so that we can get through the CAFR and see what you're speaking of.
Oh, sure. Sorry, my camera's not working today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the CAFR. This was it looks like it was the 15th year. If you look on page Roman numeral 6, the 15th consecutive year that the city received the GFOA award on the certificate of achievement from the GFOA on their financial statements. So that's a very good award. And I'm pretty sure Joanne does her budget. Is that correct, Joanne? I don't have it in here that you do you get a GFOA.
Yes, we've gotten the budget award for the last, and we just actually got the award. I just didn't get to tell the city council that yet. We just got the last award for our 2021 fiscal year budget.
Congratulations.
I think that's great. I think getting those awards really helps whenever you go to issue bonds. And I know in this CAFR, in this 2000 1920 capper, I'll say. You actually issued bonds. And so I think that really helps get you a pretty good rating on those bonds too. I will turn over to the financial section, and I'll turn over to our opinion letter, and that's on starting on page 2. That's the regular number 2, no Roman numerals on that. It's our independent auditors report. I know it's 3 pages, it's long, but what you're really concerned with is over on page 3. And it talks about our opinions, and there's a little bold opinions, and that's what you're concerned about there. And the city received an unmodified opinion, and that's very good. That's the highest form of assurance an entity can receive on their financial statements. So I'm very happy to say that they have that, and I'll read it. It says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city as of June 30, 2020, and the respective changes in financial position thereof for the year then ended in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So that's what we call an unmodified opinion. We used to call it unqualified, but I think that kind of, that some people didn't quite understand that. So unmodified is the same as unqualified. So if you ever hear unqualified, you have unqualified report if anybody ever asked, but it's really called unmodified now. We'll go over on page 5. This is the management discussion and analysis, and I know Joanne and Marlene help with this report because that's their management discussion and analysis. That's a short synopsis of what actually happened happened at the city during the year. So if you want to just read a short synopsis, those pages 5 through 13 are pretty good pages to read if you don't want to read all 102 pages of this report, which I'm sure everybody did, right, before this meeting. But on page 5, I like to just talk a little bit about the financial highlights that we put here right in the middle of this page. So on the government-wide basis, now that has all the capital assets of the city, such as all the infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, your vehicles, fire trucks, everything in that, and all the debt of the city. So the new debt for the new firehouse is in this. So it says on the government-wide basis, the assets and deferred outflows of resources of the city exceeded its liabilities and deferred inflows of resources the most recent fiscal year by $52.8 million. And of this amount, $8.5 million is available to meet the city's ongoing obligations. And this year, the city's total net position decreased by $1.4 million. That was mainly due to, well, because of when COVID happened and everything, you know, the market dropped and then all of a sudden the loggers we had a net pension asset, if you remember last year, of $1 million on the loggers. And this year we have a net pension liability of $900,000. So that's our huge swing of that $1.4 million negative. So I don't want anybody to say that that's a bad thing, because I mean, it's just an actuarial report. It's something we have to put in there. It's no money that you have to come up with right away or anything. So that's not a huge problem. Then that third bullet talks about the governmental funds, and this is what you're normally used to seeing. So the combined ending fund balances of all the governmental funds was $24.6 million, or an increase of $3.5 million. Now, a lot of this had to do with the new bond issue, the $4.8 million that we received, the GO debt for the fire station. So you are going to see that, you'll probably see next year that fund balance will go down, but we expect that to go down because we're going to spend that $4.8 million on that firehouse for next fiscal year. And that's not a problem. That's what you're supposed to do. So just to let you know that. And then that third bullet there, at the end of the current fiscal year, the unassigned fund balance of the general fund was 10.6 million, or 63% of total general fund expenditures. And that's a good, healthy fund balance, I think, for the city. So with COVID and everything that hit, I know this is as of June 30. So I know you still had to go through the last 6 months, but a lot of things happened in that first 6 months of, or I guess 3 months really, of your fiscal year, because all the courts went down really at that time. So there was hardly no revenue coming in from them. All your charges for services were almost nothing because you had to shut down your rec centers and everything like that. So we went from being a full city like everybody else, and then all of a sudden we had to take these charges down. So I still think what happened in the city was just still very good for having those 3 months as being pretty bad right there.
Tammy, I'm just going to insert something really quickly, if you don't mind. Just for your information, 70% was the percentage last year. So 63% this year, so 7% difference. But our fund balance, and I know that Tammy will go through this later, but we had to use $882,000 in reserves because of COVID.
Right.
That's
But
it.
Still had a good, healthy fund balance, I think, for even having to go through that. And I know that you budgeted to use approximately 1.1 million of that fund balance for the 2021 budget. So you're still in a good, healthy shape. So if you turn over to page 8 in that management discussion analysis, this just gives you a short synopsis of the net position of the city, the assets and liabilities compared to 2020 compared to 2019. So you'll see your total assets didn't change a whole lot. They went from 62.6 million up to 64.3 million. And again, this has to do because we received all this money for the bond issue and didn't pay it yet, didn't use it yet as of June 30. So the deferred outflows of resources, you have 2.7 million for 19, 4 million for 2020. This has to do with loggers and the OPEB. So you'll see that later in the report. And then you'll notice your total liabilities went from 8.6 million up to 14.3 million. Again, that's due to the new debt and the loggers going from a net pension asset to a net pension liability. Then you had deferred inflows of 2.4 million and it went down to 1.2 million. This again has to do with the loggers and the OPEB. So then you see we're down at the bottom, you have net pension assets of 54.2 million for 19 compared to 2020 was 52.8 million total net position. And then this year's unrestricted amount is 8.5 million. Then you have restricted amounts of 9.3 million. And those restricted amounts are for the stormwater improvements, the park improvements, capital improvements. So it's for revenue that you received that has a special tax to it normally, like the parks and stormwater tax. And so that money is restricted and has to be for that use. You can't just use it for anything. Public safety, and some of it's for the pension. So then if you turn over to page 9, it also gives you a short synopsis of the statement of activities for the city. In 2019, you had total revenues of 24.5 million. This went down to 23.4 million this year. And again, you look at your charges for services, that's where it went, because you had to close your rec center and not getting those fines from the courts and stuff because they're also closed. So you went from 5.6 million down to 4.6 million. And then your expenses went 22.2 million. They went up to 24.9 million. Again, I really think this has to do with the swing in the loggers being a $2 million swing. So, so last year you had a change in net position of 2.3 million positive. This year you have a negative change of 1.5 million, excuse me, 1.4 million negative change. So, but of course, we're going to blame that all on COVID this year because I think it's COVID's fault. Everybody says COVID's fault, so we're going to blame it on COVID too, okay? But I think it did really do a lot to a lot of different cities. I mean, I have the same thing in other cities. So don't think it's anything new. Don't think it's anything bad. Everybody's having that problem. Everybody's having this problem. But I do like over on page 10 where we're talking about the governmental funds, and it's kind of like it's the fourth paragraph where we talk about the combined fund balances of the governmental funds. They did increase. So they went up to $24.6 million. And then of this amount, 43% is, or 10.6 million is unassigned. And then we have some assigned fund balances for some committed fund balances for purchase orders and things like that, and supplies, some special projects. And then you have the restricted funds, fund balances for, of course, the special revenue funds, such as the park improvements, the pension tax, and things like that. Then you'll see where the unassigned fund balance decreased in the general fund, $950,000 or 8% from the prior year. So that decrease is the way we're doing purchase orders now. I think you're doing purchase orders a little bit different. Is that right, Joanne?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So, but as we said before, you still have a good, healthy fund balance. You have that good percentage of fund balance in there. So that's very good. Then over on page 11, you do have some budget to actual information, some budgetary highlights. But of course, the main reason we had to adjust our budget again, and you're going to hear me say this over and over, is COVID, because the charges for services, we couldn't have the rec complex open. That was hard to say. Sorry about that. So we had to, decrease our revenue there. And then also, investment income was really good when we came into 2020. And then come March, man, we're nothing. I mean, I think we're good to get 0.1% on a lot of these investments now. So those are some things that we had to do. I think the budget figures, we're still looking at the sales tax. And I don't think anybody has any real prediction of how that's working exactly. If that's better or worse. In some of the cities I see it worse, in some of the cities I see it the same, and some I've seen it better. So I think it's all across the board on that. On page 12, you have the capital assets of the city and all the debt. So we've talked about that before, where you have the fire department bonds in there. And then starting on page 14, you have the detailed information of the statement of net position, which I said, again, this is on the government-wide basis. And then over on page 15, we have the statement of activities, which again is on the government-wide basis, which we talked about before. Then on page 16, this is what you're used to seeing. You're used to seeing the balance sheets for all these funds. So we have the major funds, the general fund, the street improvement, the new fire station, and the general obligation debt. And then we have all the other non-major funds, which are the capital improvements fund, the special revenue funds, things like that. And then it shows you down at the bottom how we've talked about the fund balance there, actually how it's broken out between what's restricted and then what's unassigned. And you can see down there at the bottom under the general that 10.6 million is unassigned. So that can be used to meet your obligations. Then on page 17, what page 17 does, it's a reconciliation of the balance sheet of the governmental funds to the statement of net positions. So you take the fund balances of the governmental funds, you have to add back the capital assets. You have to add and subtract out the deferred outflows, inflows for the loggers, all the loggers information, the liabilities from the OPEB. Then you'd have to subtract out your long-term liabilities to come back to what your net position is on the government-wide basis. On page 18, you have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for your general funds, governmental funds, I'm sorry. So you'll see in this, you have, I like to focus on the general fund, I guess, really, because the rest of them are special revenue funds. The total revenues for the general fund was $14.9 million at June 30. Then we had capital expenditures of 16.8 million. So we had, we actually used more revenue than we received of 1.9 million. We had some transfers in, and then we had some transfers out, some sale of assets. So bringing that expenditure amount, over expenditure amount down to 882,000. So that's what we actually used of the prior year fund balance, 882,000 in the general fund. And I still think, again, that's all COVID. I don't think it has really anything to do with we're overexpending anywhere or doing anything like that. And if you'll see, we have the budget to actual information in the back. So I don't think it's we're overspending or anything. We're keeping in line with the expenditures. It's just the COVID, you know, how it's bringing down the revenues. And then I'm sure you had some revenues that, or excuse me, expenditures because of COVID. You know, maybe you had some more overtime with the police, or you had overtime with the fire department, or we had to get special equipment for them, the police and the fire department. So because they still have to keep doing their job, they can't stay at home to do their job. So we have to get them special equipment for that. Then on page 19, we take the reconciliation from this statement of revenues and expenditures to the statement of activities. So again, we take the change in fund balances of 3 million. We subtract off the depreciation, add back any capital assets that we capitalize, subtract off the debt that we paid and the interest and the pension to come back to our net position page, change in net position. Then on page 20, these funds are going down. Then the statement of fiduciary net position, the welfare benefit plan trust fund, those assets are going down. They're $23,000, which is okay. I mean, we're spending it for what we should be spending it for, so that's not a problem. And then the agency fund is mainly the library fund, the money that we receive for the library. Starting on page 22 is a notes to the financial statement. Note A is the summary of significant accounting policies. Not really going to go through that because that really hasn't changed from the prior year. Just seems like it's a lot of pages there. So on page, I do like to say this though, over on page 30 in the notes, we have to make sure that if you have cash in the banks over $250,000, we have to make sure that it's collateralized or secured. And as of June 30, it is all collateralized or insured. So that's very good. We want to make sure that that all stays there. That all stays that way. So no problems there. Over on page 32, this just gives you more detailed information of the capital assets if you want to look through that. Page 33 talks about the long-term debt. And the only thing really that changed there, again, is the general obligation debt. that we received on the firehouse. Note E starts the pension plan. And like I said, if you look over on page 36, this is where I was talking about down that chart down at the bottom of the page. You look at last year, you have a net pension asset because it's in parentheses of 1.2 million. That asset became a liability. The very last number on that page to $975,000. Like I said, that's nothing the city has to come up with right away. That's an actuarial formula. But whenever you take the government wide and you take an asset and change it over to a liability by about $2 million, that's where we're going to have that negative change in the net position. So. And then on page, note F on page 38, that starts the OPEB. There wasn't a large increase in that, which is good. So you look on page 39 in the middle for that, in that chart. As of 2019, you had a liability of $901,000. And as of June 30, 2020, you had a liability of $1.1 million. So that's not a very huge, large change. And so that's very good. Nothing else is really new in the rest of the report. Everything, we have some, of course, guidance on page 44, future accounting pronouncements because of COVID. Everybody said, okay, we're going to postpone the effective dates of some guidance such as the leases, which gives us 18 months, which I'm happy. I'm sure Joanne's happy. You know, we're all happy for that one. But I did want to mention that. So even though, you know, we say they're future accounting pronouncements and you might see us talk about it again, it's because that they were postponed. So it's not that, you know, we're not in compliance with them because we're in compliance with everything we're supposed to be in compliance with. They just postponed these. So we're just waiting until closer to that date to be doing that. On page 46 is the budget to actual information for the general fund on the budget basis. So if you look over on page 47, the next page, you'll see that you budgeted right in the middle of the page, you budgeted 16.1 million for the original budget for revenues, and you didn't change that amount. And then the actual came in at 14.9 million. And then over on, let's see, page 51, you budgeted expenditures at 17.5 million. The final budgeted expenditures, which we amended to 17.5 million, a little bit more. And then, so you actually had actual expenditures of $16.9 million. So, as I said, if you keep looking down at the bottom of this page, you had change in the fund balance of 882,000 that you used to this fund balance. I wasn't really going to go into any more of the financial statements. It's just really budget to actual and the non-major funds and things like that. But if you ever get a chance to, and I guess because I'm a numbers person, I really like to see this information in the back starting on page 82, the stat section. I like what happened in the cities during the year. I mean, from 10 years of information, that's a lot of information. And really, you have to kind of know what happened to the city in some of these areas. But I always like to look at that. If you ever have a chance to really look at that and see, oh my gosh, we had, you know, maybe oh shoot, I was going to say like the, what's the asset. Oh, I can't find it now. Okay, like over on page 87, I'd like to see the assessed valuations. Because it went from, if you look at the assessed valuations, I mean, it's just really funny. From 2010, your real estate assessed value went from 404 million up to 542 million. So, I mean, just to look at some of this information, I mean, to me, it's just it's very fun information to look at and know what's happening in the city and other places, because you do have to put, some of the St. Louis County information that does affect that information. But the audit went very well. I was very pleased. I know we had some hiccups with the COVID, but that had nothing to do with any of your staff. I think we did a good job. We had our mask on, they had their mask on, so we did everything to try to protect them, and they did everything to try to protect us, and I do really appreciate that too. Marlene does a great job, and I love working with Joanne. She does a great job too. So I do appreciate everything they did for us and all the questions, because we always have a lot of questions and they're always there to help. So I do appreciate that. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions for me.
Now we open it up and see how many questions we have from our council members about all of this financial information. Now let's see who's got a question. Joanne, I'm going to talk to you about the loggers pension tomorrow, because I'm sure nobody else cares about the details on that, but I do. So I'll talk to you about that. We don't need to go through that tonight.
But I want to insert one thing. So all of us, just recently, all of a sudden the markets went way crazy, and we now have over $9 billion in assets and loggers.
Really?
So that'll affect that position.
Mm-hmm.
So it will affect the calculations tremendously in a positive direction.
Good, thank you. Other questions from council?
When we look at this, the page that you just pointed us to on 87, and looking at that real estate residential assessed value. So, and when I read the note, that first column then is the total direct real estate tax rate. So that's the residential real estate tax rate, right?
Yes.
So is that telling us that from 2010 to 2019, that the real estate tax rate declined from 0.8770 to 0.7170?
Yes.
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 Yes, and it has to do with your assessed valuation going up too, because it's kind of a weird calculation. Joanne can help explain it.
Yes.
That you can't have more revenue than you had last year, and so it's kind of a weird situation. So even though your assessed value way up, and that's how I can see your tax rate going down, because of, I can't remember the percentage, but it can't go up more than, I don't know, 3% or something from the prior year. It's kind of a weird number. So
It's the cost of living. It can't go up any more than the cost of living. That's determined by I believe it's the state auditor's office.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
And the assessed years, then it can go up by the new construction as well.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so new construction helps.
Right.
So is this more a representation of the percentage of the real estate tax revenue that we get, as opposed to?
Yes, these are the city rates.
Yeah.
So there's in our city budget, we have the whole listing of all entities that have to pay taxes, or that, I'm sorry, Webster Groves residents have to pay in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's also in the popular annual financial report, or maybe it's not, Marlene, is it? You're muted.
Marlene, you're muted.
There. I don't remember if we put it in the popular annual or not. I know it's in the budget, and I know if you go to the website, you can get to it.
Okay. I just wanted to add one additional thing, and this is on page 16. It has one item under fund balance, non-spendable, advance to other funds under the general fund. And I know that some of the council members who have been here longer know what this is all about, but the newer ones probably do not. So a few years ago, we had a problem in the sewer lateral fund where our expenditures exceeded our revenues, and we were deficit spending, and we can't do that in municipal government. So we transferred temporarily money from the general fund to the sewer lateral fund in order to help us. And so on page 69, actually, it shows now that we are actually making money, or we have a surplus. It's not a lot, but it is $64,000. And so soon we'll be able to start reimbursing or refunding the money back to the general fund. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention because I really appreciate that you were willing to work with us on that and trust us to loan that money for the last couple of years.
Joanne,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I only have one question. How do you normally handle I was looking at the schedule of management comments. What process do you use to correct those items?
So what I will do, or what I've already done actually, is worked with the staff who are responsible for those 3 items. Honestly, on 2 of the 3, it's just a matter of my staff being new, and it's so much to try to get both positions to be able to be perfect. I mean, unfortunately, they're just mistakes happen. And, but I can tell you that both Marlene and the other gal who does this work this will not happen next year. It's just a matter of.
I do consider it minor in nature, but just as long as it's been addressed, that's great.
Exactly. And then the other item, I've already talked to the Park and Rec director.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
We do bring these comments up to Marlene and Joanne as soon as we find them, so that it can start being corrected at that time. And like you said, these are minor, but even the minor ones, we bring them to their attention as soon as so it can start being corrected at that point, really.
Good question, Emerson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else?
So mine is more of a philosophical question as we enter budget season, because reading this, hearing this report, yeah, COVID's written all over this everywhere, and we're approaching another budget season. And I just wonder if and this may wait for Marie as well, I don't know. Is there a change in attitude at all as we're going into the budget season? We do have reserves that we can use, and there's some expectation if this doesn't clear up that we may have to. I understand that, but I guess I just want to understand before we get to April or May, maybe how this budget cycle is it going to be different in any way? Are we forging ahead with the expectation that COVID will resolve itself?
Joanne.
I know it's a terrible question, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I don't know what the answer is to that. And so I guess maybe also to me, it's what my colleagues are thinking as well.
It's
just
a great
you,
question.
Joanne.
So
yeah.
this is what I will be doing starting very soon, and that is working on revenue projections. So that's very different from accounting. The budget is looking forward, and with doing these CAFRs, it's looking currently or looking backward. So it's just a different process that I will be doing. But normally, and just so you know, I normally never miss revenue by this much. I mean, usually I miss revenue by like $15,000 or $20,000. So
I think that's okay in this cycle. I think it's totally understandable.
But so I will, and what my plan is I'll do a mid-year financial report so you can see where we are in the middle of the year. But then in the next month or so, I will probably do something like in advance so that you see what my revenue projections are looking like and some guesstimates here and there, so that we get started and we have more time in which to decide what we want to do.
Good.
Thank you. That would be greatly appreciated, especially because, some of this will bounce right back. I mean, people are going to go to the swimming pool, provided it's safe next summer. We know that. But like the utility stuff, if people have changed their commuting behavior and where they work and how they work, I assume that that's one of those that's going to be really hard for you to project.
Yes.
Well, the thing is, Laura, as you know, you have to pray for bad weather when you're on council, because that bad weather is what we need for the utility tax.
So forget about enjoying the nice day today. It was supposed to be 10 degrees, not 50
That's
degrees.
right, because you want people to heat their house and
Yeah.
pay their taxes, pay that utility tax. For those who are participating and attendees, I'm joking. So, all right, any other questions? Well, that leaves us with, thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Marlene. This is a huge amount of work and a huge amount of data here. And we are ever so grateful to you for all of this. And I think if you have some questions or observations, you can certainly go to Joanne, who has always been eager to answer any of these questions for you. And we'll be satisfied that we're in really good shape here in the city and we are fiscally responsible, healthy, and stable. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have approximately 5 minutes for a discussion on those golf carts. And I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add in 5 minutes, whether this is something we want to go back and continue to discuss, or if you've made up your mind about golf carts in the city. I'm asking.
I think I've made up my mind, Mayor. I just do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
When I see Dale on here somewhere, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, there are no, anybody can drive a golf cart. There's no particular age. They don't have to have a driver's license. Is that correct?
Well, technically, the ordinance as it stands right now, Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're illegal on the street.
Okay.
So if it's off
Right,
street.
I agree with that.
If
It's illegal on the street right now, so no one can drive.
No one can drive them.
Right.
But if we did make them legal, we put our own parameters on it, like age limit and who can drive it during what time and things of that nature.
Yes, and that's what we've, and not in, Dale, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's what we've seen in other ordinances where they have approved it. They've put some fairly strict limitations on who and what can be operated. And things like seat belts, lights, insurance, all of those things are built in.
Yeah. And all of those.
We have the ability to say anything we want in that regard, Emerson.
Okay.
I saw ordinance, I saw ordinances that seem pretty practical from other cities as far as keeping them legal, but with, just practical safety measures and licensing and insurance seems realistic to me to allow that. So I wouldn't, you redlined the ordinance. I would vote in favor. We look at adding more and legalizing them.
Okay. Anybody else?
I tend to agree with Pam. I think that there's an avenue here. I just had a question. Someone brought up to me, and I don't know how accurate this is, that Crestwood just recently legalized golf carts. Is that accurate?
They did, yes. And you have a copy of the Crestwood ordinance in your package.
Okay.
That was one I thought was a good example.
All right. I think that there's an avenue here as well if, to legalize them before going down this path that they're so dangerous that we need to criminalize them.
I guess my concern, legalizing them, will we put age restrictions on this stuff?
That would be your call.
Yeah. So I think once we probably legalize it to a point, will it lose any kind of value? Safety features, insurance, headlights, seat belts, and I don't know. I just have concerns. I can see people driving down the middle of Lockwood with their little golf cart, and disturbing traffic, especially with the school district. What would stop a 16-year-old driving a golf cart to school?
If I could just quickly interject, I mean, that's one of our concerns. I mean, it's
Yes, Dale, go ahead.
one of the things that I would like at least for us to consider is that it could become a nuisance factor. If there's a proliferation of golf carts, it could be actually become a nuisance, especially in places like Old Webster and the school down by the schools, so that we may be getting a lot of complaints if there's all of a sudden a large use of them. Again, I would recommend against it, but again, like I had in my memo, only because of some of those factors and some of those safety factors. But I mean, we're not objecting to it if we put the safety features in it, but there are things to consider besides just safety features.
Wasn't one of the main concerns that we don't really have the infrastructure for this? So when we look at that, as well as, I guess I wonder, how do we enforce whatever guidelines or restrictions or laws or however we do it that we put in place from an age perspective, as well as not having the infrastructure?
My suggestion would be, if we do an ordinance, that we require them to be registered with the city, and part of that would be to either come to the police department or public works, whichever one we choose, to make sure that they meet are the guidelines within the ordinance before they get a registration certificate to say they can do it. And also, if we do it, I would really also strongly recommend that they not be allowed on streets that have a speed limit in excess of 25 miles per hour.
I think that all sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes, same.
I do wonder if we were to ban them entirely, they get used at community days. Webster University uses them all around their campus. I think the school district uses some related to athletic events. I may be wrong about that, but so, what if we're going to say no to all of them? Does that mean like the university can't use them on campus? And frankly, I see their cart come to the president's house all the time. I guess, I started out not just saying, let's just get rid of them entirely, because I worry about under 16-year-old drivers. I think I'd like us to continue to discuss what the regulations are. I'm not sure I'm all the way there, but I'm not ready to say no entirely right now.
I don't know the difference between a golf cart and a gator, because I do believe that what the university and others are using are gators, and how they're different, I don't know. And it would be interesting to know the difference in cost between those simple golf carts and the ones that are loaded with the safety features.
That's significant, and it kind of goes to what Emerson said. At some point, it loses its attraction because you have to put so much on it that, again, it just isn't cost effective to do anymore. But I like the suggestion of putting a sticker on there, having the city inspect it and then put a sticker on it, which would be obvious because that means it's passed muster, and the police could see that. So,
yeah. All right, do we want to continue to look at this with a series of restrictions, or?
My last question, Mayor, is that the request, is it for more than a couple of people?
That's what my next question was.
I worry about how much time we're spending on it. That's my biggest concern.
I guess, right. When I was just thinking that too. I mean, how big of an issue is this? How many of these do we see? Is this are we again managing to the 1 or 2%, or are we managing to 40-30%? I mean,
I think we spent about 6 work sessions on driveways. So.
But everybody has a driveway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
All this side.
Okay, so are we going to continue this discussion, or are we simply going to say they're illegal? That's it. I'm
confused about, sorry, can I just ask, I'm confused about the difference between saying they're illegal and putting them in the recreational vehicle. Is that what we mean when we say they're illegal? We're putting them in that category with other recreational vehicles?
I don't know.
I don't think that's the right word
now,
phrase, but
they are technically illegal in the strictest sense. They cannot be driven on the public streets. You can drive them on your private property, but that's the only place you can drive them. They're not considered a low-speed vehicle or a recreation vehicle for the purpose of being licensed or for the purpose of driving on the public street.
But if we were to say we wanted to include them in that category, that's different than saying they're illegal.
Well, we could legalize them by creating an ordinance to say that they are legal and they can be driven the same as a motor vehicle or a low-speed vehicle. I mean, again, you have the authority to do it without restrictions, but I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah.
I think if we do it, we need to make sure that it's done in a way that we can ensure some level of safety in their use.
But Sarah, there's not a category called recreational vehicle that we say is okay to operate on the streets. Does that
Right.
make- Okay.
So when we're saying it's illegal, we're saying it's illegal to drive them on the street. I'm just trying to make sure I understand
Yes,
the
it's
line,
illegal
because
to drive
we
them on
could
the street.
still have them like legally not on the streets, just
Yeah,
No.
you
not.
can.
Okay.
You know, you can drive them around in Webster University on Webster's paths and their roads and their driveways. But if you start to operate on the street, it becomes problematic. Now, their gators have lights and blinkers and all sorts of things like that. So
So I was getting ready to ask the mayor's question. I guess this is what pretty much says we need to talk about it more. But you know, the difference between a golf cart and a gator. I'm like, honestly, I don't know enough about the problem, the nuisance, the issue, the ask, any of that.
So don't think of it that way. Think about the difference between an automobile and a cart. And again,
Okay.
it's the lights and all of those things that are attendant to a gator that's separated from a golf cart. Because a plain golf cart has an electric engine and it has a seat on it and a steering wheel and it goes backward and forward and that's it.
Okay.
All right, some decisions. I'm going to suggest that we say, this is the end.
My vote is no. That was.
All right, thank you, Emerson. It's just no, we're done. Sarah,
Yep.
Laura, Karen, others, no or yes? Come on.
I, you know, despite the fact that we might be catering to the quote unquote 1 or 2%, this is Webster Groves and we have some high economic or high earning people. And if people want to have a golf cart, I think that we as a council have a duty to determine whether it's advisable in this city. So I think we need to look and see if this is possible.
All right, so we got one yes, one no. One yes to continue the discussion, one no, we're done. Come on, the rest of you.
I'm a no for now.
Sarah's a no. We got two no's, one yes.
I'm
How
a
about
yes per the Crestwood one.
Two no's, two yeses. All right, Karen, Laura. You got
I'm
it.
a yes to see what, I mean, but because
Three
I would
yeses,
be,
two no's. Laura?
I think Karen wanted to say something more.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Karen.
right. I mean, because I would be even going further, more inclined toward whatever we needed to put on them from the ordinance perspective, the lights of the what to make it a gator to whatever. And then if, to David's point, we have a population that can afford to do it, then it's what's going to have to be necessary in order to have it, you know. But I'm still concerned with not having the infrastructure to manage this, and then how do you enforce it?
Three yeses, two no's. Laura?
I honestly don't know whether I'm a yes or a no, but I would
Right.
like to see a very specific proposal from Chief Curtis. We've got a list of things there. If that's what you're asking for, then I'd like for us to vote on that list of specifications, because we
Four
didn't.
yeses, two no's.
Yeah.
Okay, then we will ask for something more specific, perhaps the ordinance similar to what Crestwood has done, and bring that forward. We're done. Thank
If
you.
I may, with 45% of the vote counted in Georgia, Warnick is leading Loeffler by 150,000 votes, 160,000 votes. And Ossoff is leading Purdue by 160,000 votes.
Okay, the political scientist in me has to say, remember, that doesn't mean a lot yet, given the nature of the vote counting.
But they're also showing us where they're counted, which is interesting. I'm looking at the New
Yeah.
York Times. So
Okay.
yes, I agree with you. But it also at 46,000 at this point, that's almost 1,000,009 voters. And 180,000 votes is a lot to overcome.
Okay. This is the nonpartisan city council going to close this work session, all right?
Merely reporting.
And I am going to give everybody a 3-minute break for water and we will come back, and for those of you who are on here as a participant, we'll be back in 3 minutes for our regular council meeting. Okay.
And did you say water?
3 minutes.
For the nonpartisan council meeting.
There you go.
This is done.
Neil, you said you was on the New York Times website?
Yeah. And it just, the way these votes are coming in is just remarkable.
Yeah, because I think one of the big issues is that one county is going to count the not the walk-in, but the early voters first, and then they're going to do the absentee, then they're going to do the actual voting, and another county was going to do it just the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. And but again, it's going to be the heavy population areas that are going to make all the difference here. And
Oh yeah.
I've been watching these numbers all night. It's mesmerizing to watch them change. But again, this Raffensperger, I think, is interesting, and Gabriel Sterling, who is the election official down there. I've been watching them respond to the things that have been said, and
Oh yeah, they are brutal. They're really ticked off saying something nice, I guess.
Don't blame them.
I don't blame them either.
Okay, so who's missing here? David, Sarah, Pam. Laura's here. 6, good enough. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call this council meeting to order. And again, Katie will deal with the remarks of visitors. I think we have 1 or 2 to read, and perhaps somebody has something that they want to say here. And we remind you about the 3-minute limit. And we also remind you that if you want to have your comments read into the minutes, that you need to submit them by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. All right, we'll begin with the roll call. Katie.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Welsh.
Here.
Councilmember Arnold.
Here.
Councilmember Bliss.
Here.
Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
All right, our first agenda item this evening is a recognition of Jonathan Williams, who has been with us for 20 years. And Jonathan is here. You want to wave, Jonathan? So folks know who you are. And I want to go ahead and read this proclamation for Jonathan, and it'll give you a little bit of idea of those of you who don't know him, his background. Lieutenant Jonathan Williams began his employment with the city of Webster on January 8th, 2001, and continued his employment until his retirement date of January 8th, 2021. During his years of dedicated service, Jonathan served the department as patrol officer, detective with the St. Louis County Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Task Force, sergeant supervising a patrol squad, and lieutenant commanding a patrol platoon. Whereas Jonathan was Officer of the Year in 2002 and received letters of appreciation, recognition, and commendations during his 20 years of service. Whereas Jonathan met the daily duties and challenges of his job with integrity, diligence, professionalism, and care, and he earned the admiration and respect of his colleagues and friends. Whereas after 20 years of service, Jonathan is retiring from the Webster Groves Police Department to accept the position of Chief of Police with the City of Crestwood Police Department, which we're all happy for, Jonathan. We're glad that you're not leaving the profession. So on behalf of the city and the council, we want to thank and honor Jonathan Williams for his years of service and making Webster Groves a safer place to live and play, and to proclaim this Friday, February 8th as Jonathan Williams Day in the city of Webster Groves. Hey, Jonathan. And Dale, you may have something you want to say, as Jonathan may also.
Just very briefly, we're definitely going to miss Jonathan. He was a very important part of our management team. He was really a great asset to the city, but it's also a really good thing that he's moving to the next level, which would be the chief in Crestwood. I wish him well. I'm sure he'll do a good job there. And it's a credit not just to the department, but to him that he has been able to achieve that level and was able to get that position. So we will miss him a lot, but I know he's moving on and will do good things in the law enforcement community.
And Jonathan, if you have anything you'd like to say, feel free, but you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Mayor, for those kind words, and thank you, Chief Curtis. It's a bit bittersweet. This has been a career goal of mine to be a police chief, and to obtain that in 20 years feels pretty good. I will always be grateful to the city of Webster Groves, and especially Chief Curtis. He gave a 22-year-old a chance almost exactly 20 years ago. I didn't offer much, and he gave me that chance. So I'll always be grateful for that and all the opportunities that the department's given me and the city's given me throughout the years. It's very bittersweet. I'm going to miss, I've made so many friends and met so many wonderful people, and I'm really going to miss serving the community of Webster Groves. But I'm really excited about the opportunity I have. And I know that I'm in a good spot and be able to do it because of the city council and the mayor and people I've met, and Chief Curtis and everybody I've worked with at Webster Groves. So I feel like I'm in a good place because of you all, and I thank everybody. And luckily I'm just a town over, so I won't go away. So I'll still get to see everybody and get to see all the faces that I recognize, which will be nice. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. And yeah, Friday is my last day, so Monday will be strange. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jonathan. We really, really appreciate your service over the years. And we're glad that you're going to be so close by. You know, the collaborations in the police department are always welcomed. And so that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cards.
I walked into, I came in early and I heard the golf cart stuff, and I heard something about Crestwood ordinance. So I've been versed on that ordinance, but hopefully that ordinance will help you out. So.
Very good.
Thank you.
I'll find out about it in the near future, I'm sure. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, our next agenda item is a public hearing. And I'm going to open this public hearing on a building code amendment, driveway standards, Proposed amendments include changes and additions to sections 20.352 and 20.355 of the Building Code Ordinance in order to clarify and update regulations to match recent amendments to the zoning code. And I don't know if Mara needs to talk about this, but feel free.
I did not do a presentation for this evening just because this was pretty simple. What I simply did in the code was, you can probably see in the red line, is just say, meet the requirements that we just approved. It can't get much simpler than that when it comes to that portion. The other portion, there might be some questions on. There was a discussion about amending at the same time the allowance to have gravel driveways, to put that back into the code. So I have essentially just put it back in with all the requirements that we currently had in for existing, that it needs to, provide for not allowing mud and gravel into the street, having an engineered system, things that contain the gravel, and having it being properly maintained. So if there's questions on that, they're both pretty simple amendments. And do note, we made it as a public hearing just because that's how we usually do the building code updates. But we are not technically required to hold a public hearing on Chapter 20 amendments like we do for zoning. But we decided that it's important to kind of follow our previous procedures.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so with that, Neil, can you close this public hearing?
Yes, ma'am. I moved that we close the public hearing, but since we of course had no exhibits to be admitted, we will just do it on the documents that are submitted.
Okay.
There was an exhibit list, Neil, that I sent today that Mara had sent, but we can just include it.
Forgive me, I didn't see that exhibit list, so I would move that we include that exhibit list.
It's pretty straightforward. It has the memo to the city council, my PowerPoint, which I didn't end up doing a PowerPoint, the zoning code and the building code.
Which would be standard. So I would move for the admission of those exhibits, please.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, the public hearing is closed and we will go to Bill 9138. And Pam, could you call for the first and second reading?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9138.
Second.
Bill 9138, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, adopting and enacting amendments to section 20.352 and 20.355 of the miscellaneous building code regulations and matters related thereto.
Are there any questions or issues? If not, Neil, would you do the second reading, please?
Yes, ma'am. Bill 9138, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, adopting and enacting amendments to section 20.352 and 20.355 of the miscellaneous building code regulations and matters related thereto.
Okay, we're off to remarks of visitors, and Katie and Jennifer, tell us, do we have some?
Yes, we have 2 remarks of visitors and we'll look to see if there are any hands up.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our first remarks of visitors is from Daniel Brazzini. It was received on the 5th at 8:26 a.m. Webster Groves is special taxing away its position as a premier place to live, work, and raise a family in a traditional yet progressive community. The city of Webster Groves already has a dozen special taxes, including fire sales tax, public safety sales tax, police and fire pension fund tax, park improvement tax, stormwater improvement tax, street improvement tax, capital improvement tax, second park and stormwater improvement tax, sanitary sewer lateral repair tax, Old Webster property tax, Old Orchard property tax, and Crossroads property tax. That does not include property taxes, library tax, and the school district tax. Webster Groves sales tax has nearly doubled the Missouri state sales tax to a retail discouraging level of 9.24%. In May of 2020, while private businesses were shut down, the city passed an unbalanced budget of $31.4 million with a projected $25.4 million in tax collections, assuming the response to COVID-19 would be a, quote, miserable one-time survival test. If not, the $11 million of excess taxes collected in the general reserve fund would allow for the city to continue spending as usual. While Webster Grove's businesses were belt tightening and laying off people or shutting down permanently, and while residents were losing their jobs or having their pay reduced, the city employees were still getting twice a year pay raises so as not to discourage good employees, according to the published city budget that says it puts residents at the top of its organizational chart. 32% of the funding for the city's budget comes from taxes on sales. No businesses means no sales, and that means no sales taxes collected. Today's customer foot traffic, like an ad in the yellow pages, won't keep local businesses afloat. A use/internet sales tax will discourage shopping at multiple local websites in favor of the one-stop shopping ease of giant online retailers like Amazon. Unfortunately, the city of Webster Grove sees more taxation as the only salvation for businesses or for city employees, as it hopes to extract another $250,000 through yet another special use tax, i.e. internet sales tax of 5.775%. $250,000 is just 0.7% of the $31.4 million budget. If the city of Webster Groves wanted to increase tax collections with the least amount of controversy, here are some pro-business and pro-resident ways to do it. Number one, high-end condominiums/housing near historic Webster for people to remain in Webster who no longer wish the upkeep of a home but love living in Webster. There's severe lack of it, and the property tax collected, as well as the disposable income of these residents shopping nearby at their favorite Webster Grove stores and restaurants, will increase sales tax collections. Number two, don't regulate out property improvements. People with the money to build a bigger house or to add an addition, create jobs, generate local sales, increase the value of their neighbor's home, and pay more property taxes. Besides, they can always find a bigger home elsewhere, so don't regulate good residents away. Number three, decrease the delay for inspections, permits, and licenses on signage, renovations, and openings. My 3 minutes is up. All right, our second remarks of visitors was received the 5th today at 11:37. It's from Dave Buck. To our imaginative mayor, city council, and city staff, as you begin a new year, it is the natural time to look back, reflect, and learn from the past, then boldly sail into the future by setting new goals and the strategic plan to accomplish them. To me, vision is the first and most important element that focuses and guides the entire strategic plan. Simply defined, vision is a picture of a desired future state. Vision is all about imagining and dreaming as you look forward. Thus, for your consideration, here are my top 10 imaginings for Webster Groves. Imagine a community that moves forward at the speed of trust every day as the essential foundation between all city departments and the people they serve. Imagine a day when diversity, equity, and inclusion are more than words, but real tangible actions by our community that recognize, accept, and celebrate our uniqueness and differences as individuals, but also treat all people fairly and equally as members of our one human race. Imagine a nationally recognized city of the arts that lifts our collective spirits every day with a work of art in every home on every street corner and weekly concerts and plays in the new Webster Groves Performing Center in the Ozark Theater. Imagine no more deep divisions within our community, but a commitment to be peacemakers by coming together, finding middle ground, and creating win-win solutions. Imagine a community that respects our kids as the most creative people on the planet and therefore regularly includes them by seeking out their different thinking, ideas, and situations to city problems and opportunities. Imagine a day when our people are no longer called residents, but rather citizens who accept and bear the responsibility of citizenship to the community and to each other. Imagine that the real character of our community lies not in our historic architecture, but in the hearts of our citizens as they live the values of human connection, honesty, kindness, acceptance, generosity, and humility, among others. Imagine when our multitude of churches stop operating alone as functional silos, but join together as one major united force for good, where the whole has greater lasting impact than the sum of its parts. Imagine a community that lives up to its name to share together as one, by not always spending, but instead seeking new ways to share our community's immense talents, skills, creativity, time, energy, and possessions for the betterment of others. Imagine our city's best ever mayor, city council, and city staff working tirelessly to make Webster Groves the best ever small town city in the world. But forget about me. The question is, what do you imagine? Peace, Dave.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands up. Let's see. I do not.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jen, for reading those, and we will move on to new business. Our Bill number 9139. I need somebody to call for the first and second reading. Emerson, can you do that? Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. I would like to call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9139.
Second.
Neil, can't hear you.
Would you believe me if I told you I'd gotten all the way through? Bill 9, in first reading, in ordinance vacating that portion of the public right-of-way of Avenue A between 1306 South Elm Avenue and 14 East Rose Avenue on the attached Exhibit 1 to this ordinance, 9139, and comprising approximately 4,350 square feet and consolidating lots for a new city fire station and matters related thereto.
Does anyone need any more information or an explanation in addition to what was given to you here? If not, Neil, then go with the second reading, please.
Bill 9139, second reading, in ordinance vacating that portion of the public right-of-way of Avenue A between 1306 South Elm Avenue and 14 East Rose Avenue on the attached Exhibit 1 to this ordinance, 9139, and comprising approximately 4,350 square feet and consolidating lots for a new city fire station and matters related thereto.
Thank you. All right, resolution 2021, Councilwoman Arnold, would you call for that? Reading and
Yes.
passing?
Yep. Yes, Mayor. I call for the reading of resolution 2021-01 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Resolution 2021-01, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for general contractor services for the Firehouse 2 project and amending the Firehouse 2 budget.
Mr. Chief Yohe, is there something you want to say about this particular item?
I think, excuse me, that, through the process, we've had a very good and collaborative partnership with Gemma and Navigate, and we had a very fair and open bidding process and vetted out the correct contractor to build our firehouse. Like I said, I feel very comfortable with the partnerships that we have formed and welcome the contractor in. And I think the value is there and it's the right move for the city.
I believe you received 14 bids.
That is correct. There were 14 bids and we interviewed the 3 lowest bidders to make sure we had the right fit.
Okay. Does anyone have a question for Chief Yohe?
I just had a question. What's the transfer from the general fund?
I can answer that. So in the very beginning, when we first put together the project budget, we had certain numbers, but after that, we hadn't worked out the numbers further. But after we received this bid specifically from Wright Construction, we realized that we needed to adjust our numbers a bit. And then secondarily, I had not asked for a budget amendment when I had intended to when we hired Navigate as the owner's representative. And so that is the amount of their contract, which is $154,000.
Okay.
So does this construction services, what exactly does that entail? Like what was, I guess I'm confused as to what the bid exactly was for. Does that make sense? Like what does it encompass?
Which bid? So the current one for the
4 million,
general
sorry,
contract?
Joanne.
Oh, the 4 million bid?
Yeah, what are we paying them $4 million to do?
Okay, so why don't we have 2 people on from Navigate for us. They are our owner's representatives. One is Craig Schluter, the other is Matt and I'll let them speak about it.
Hi, Craig Schluter with Navigate. First, I just want to thank you all for giving Navigate the opportunity to work with Webster Groves. We're really excited to work with you all and to help support you in this exciting endeavor to build Fire Station number 2. So to answer your question, Councilman David, essentially Wright Construction's bid is to do all the construction for Firehouse number 2. They'll demo the existing residential homes, build the new apparatus or build the new bunk rooms as phase 1. demo the existing firehouse and then build the new firehouse. So it's the complete construction bid package, which will ultimately take you from start to finish of your new firehouse.
What was, I'm just looking at the memo. The following alternates have not been accepted at this time, and it includes radiant under slab heat and remediate soil under new pavement. What does that mean?
So about those alternates specifically, so the radiant under slab heat, so you can put a heating element underneath the concrete floors, which keep it heated. So that would go underneath the apparatus bay. That was something that is desired by the city of Webster Groves and by Chief Yohe. Right now, that's not in the budget, but the goal is to ultimately, have the project go really well and to utilize contingency funds to do that, because that is something that's you would have to do it now as part of construction. You can't add it on 5-10 years later from now, because you'd be demoing that concrete floor where the fire trucks ultimately reside. The other alternate number 2, remediate soil under new pavement. So the geotechnical engineers said, give the fire station a standard industry, normal section for the parking lot. It's like a traditional parking lot. The geotechnical engineer said that if Webster Groves wanted to provide more life to that parking lot, they could do some more, put 12 inches more rock underneath that parking lot, and that would give it more life. They'll never tell you how much longer, but a parking lot is as good as the base. So the more rock you have underneath asphalt or concrete, the longer it survives, the less cracks it has, and it just lasts longer. So it's kind of like an additional feature to the firehouse. It doesn't have to be done, but if funds were available, it would be something that would just give you guys a longer term parking lot, which would reduce maintenance costs long term.
What can you tell us about Wright Construction?
So they're a general contractor. They've been in business for I forget how long, but several decades. They primarily do public sector work. Navigate just completed a project with them. They were the low bid for the city of Union, and they built the Union City Hall. The project went very well. It was a couple months ahead of schedule. It was under budget, and the project team did very well on that. So we just completed a project, which is great that we have experience working with them. We know them well, and they did a great job. They have also worked on numerous firehouses throughout the region. So we felt that during the interview process, they were qualified to do this project because they have a lot of firehouse experience. So overall, I think the revenue they said last year was close to $100 million. So they're a middle-sized general contractor, which is also important because if there ever is a time when there's a schedule issue, when you have a medium-sized or large-sized general contractor, they can pull on the subcontractors a little more than a smaller general contractor because they award more work, and that allows us a little more schedule control. So that's kind of the quick cliff notes. I don't know if you have any other specific questions about them.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thanks.
What were the other fire departments that they worked with, that they completed, that they built?
Let me pull that up, Matt, unless you have it handy. Just have to give me 1 second.
Yeah, I can address just a couple recent ones. Was Metro West. They performed work on 2 of their fire stations. One was just a renovation. The other one was a renovation and addition. Those were both in the last 3 years. And then they also did some work with Spanish Lake in the last couple of years.
And I'm sorry, where is Metro West? Are you saying it was just in the metropolitan West area? Is that what you're saying? Like
It's like Wildwood.
Yeah.
Chesterfield and
Yeah,
Wildwood.
Chesterfield.
Okay, great. All right, anybody have any other questions? Good. Thank you very much, Craig and Matt, for your information and for working for us. And I think we're ready to take a vote if we have no other questions. Katie?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh.
Yes. Well, this is exciting. We're on the road now to build this firehouse. It's been a number of years in the works, and I'm sure Tom's going to have a big smile on his face that this is on the way. All right.
I'll have a big smile when it's done.
When it's done. So, all right, we're moving on to Bill 9140. David, would you like to call for the reading, first and second reading?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9140.
Second.
Bill 9140, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri on April the 6th, 2021, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, for purchases from out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000.
Any questions or issues? Hearing none, we'll go to the second reading.
Bill 9140, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri on April the 6th, 2021, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, for purchases from out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000.
All right, does anyone care to ask a question about or remove anything from the consent agenda? So a lot of very good. Pardon me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Move on.
Yeah, a lot of good information in there, a lot of good projects. Anybody care to remove anything? If not, Sarah, would you call for the approval of the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
All right, we have no appointments to boards and commissions, no executive closed session, and I think we're all off to watching the news tonight, correct?
But the numbers have narrowed just a little.
Neil, I'll give you a phone call about 12:30. You see how we're doing.
Well, I'm coming over. I'll be on your back porch. I'll be the guy with the empty glass. At one point, it was 900 votes. Ossoff and Purdue were flipping, and it was 900 votes. Now it's expanded again to 15,000 in favor of Ossoff. So, nail biter. Warnick is outpacing everybody. He's the single highest vote getter of all four candidates. So,
oh, good.
Wow. Good for
yeah,
him.
interesting.
Interesting.
Everyone, Happy New Year.
Yes,
Yep,
Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.